So picking up this video in chapter 1, verse 20. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, that is, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived, being understood by what has been made, so that they are without excuse. In keeping this verse in context, we'll want to recognize the continuation of thought here. That will help us keep track of the pronouns. The they here remains the unrighteous people, reaching back into verse 18, those who are suppressing the truth of God's revelation by their own unrighteousness, those whom the wrath of God is revealed against. They remain the broader subject here. This phrase, invisible attributes, comes from an interesting little Greek word which simply means invisible. So you could render this differently as the invisible things or the unseen things about God. Those would catch Paul's drift here just as well. Now, if you've studied at all systematic theology or traditional categories of systematic theology, then you probably recognize the invisible attributes language. And while those are helpful for systematic categories, we sort of want to step away from thinking about this systematically, because Paul tells us the attributes that he has in mind here, specifically God's eternal power and divine nature. And these invisible things, he says, have been made visible through what has been made. In other words, the fact that the world exists, creation itself, is evidence of God's power and his status as God, essentially. And because mankind, even the unrighteous man, can see and perceive this, he is therefore condemned by his own perception and his own understanding. In other words, the unrighteous people who look at creation or their own existence and choose not to seek the being who made it is like ignoring the obvious. So this is intentionally strong language on Paul's part. He's basically saying, if you can't figure out the basic nature of God by simply looking around, you are without excuse, and that will play into his argument as we continue our study.